The massive Draconian warship cut through the darkness of space, its scaled hull gleaming under the distant light of Earth's sun. Admiral Tejo stood on the command bridge, his tall reptilian form towering over the crew. His amber eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display of the blue planet before him. "Look at them," he said, sharp teeth flashing in a smile, still burning fossil fuels, still fighting over imaginary lines on their maps. G1, his second-in-command, approached with a data tablet. She was smaller than Tejo, but just as deadly, her uniform decorated with medals from past conquests. "Our scans confirm it, Admiral," she reported. "The humans have no unified defense system. Their most advanced weapons would barely scratch our hull plating. Their communications are primitive, and their governments are in constant disagreement." Tejo nodded, pleased. "Just like the last 17 worlds we conquered, this will be quick." The Draconian fleet, 30 warships strong, moved silently toward Earth, hidden behind cloaking technology that had served them well across the galaxy. These ships had turned proud civilizations to ash, their names spoken in fearful whispers across countless star systems. "Prepare the first wave," ordered Tejo. "I want control of their major population centers within 6 hours." The fleet crossed the boundary of Earth's solar system, passing Neptune's orbit. Everything was proceeding according to plan until warning lights suddenly flashed across the command console. "What's happening?" demanded Tejo, watching as system after system reported failures. A young officer named Do-hyun frantically worked the controls. "Admiral, our cloaking systems are failing. I can't determine the cause." "Impossible," growled G1. "That technology is centuries beyond anything these humans could counter." Yet the evidence was clear on their screens. Not only were the cloaking systems failing, but something on Earth was actively scanning them, picking up their positions with amazing accuracy. "They've detected us," reported Do-hyun, disbelief in his voice. "Earth's primitive satellites are somehow tracking our position." On the main view screen, they watched as lights across the planet's night side began to activate. Communication signals spiked. Military bases around the world went on high alert. Tejo gripped the railing of his command platform. This wasn't right. Humans shouldn't have been able to detect them at all, let alone respond so quickly. He had studied Earth for months before this invasion. Nothing in their intelligence suggested capabilities like this. "It doesn't matter," he decided after a moment. "Even if they can see us coming, they have nothing that can harm us." "Proceed with the invasion plan." The fleet continued its approach, entering Earth orbit to take up strategic positions. Tejo watched with satisfaction as his ships moved into formation. Soon, the humans would know the name of their new masters. That's when it happened. The Victory, one of their largest destroyers, simply vanished from the tactical display. "Report!" shouted Tejo. "The Victory is ungone, Admiral," said G1, her voice unusually shaky. "No explosion, no debris field, no distress signal. It just disappeared." Before Tejo could process this information, another ship vanished. Then another. 3 of his most powerful warships gone without a trace. "Are they attacking?" he demanded. "Show me the weapons they're using." Do-hyun shook his head. "That's just it, sir. Our sensors detect no weapons fire, no energy signatures, no projectiles. There's nothing to see." The command bridge fell silent as the reality sank in. The humans were somehow making their ships disappear without firing a shot, without leaving any evidence of how they were doing it. Tejo stared at the blue planet below them, his confidence crumbling. How could a species that still fought with primitive bullets and missiles do this? How could a planet divided by borders and languages and politics mount such an effective defense? "We need to pull back," urged G1. "Regroup and analyze what's happening." But Tejo's pride wouldn't allow it. "No, we continue as planned. Launch the second wave." As he gave the order, the emergency alarms blared again. On the view screen, Earth's surface remained calm, peaceful. No visible defense, no massive weapon batteries, just a seemingly harmless planet that was somehow making his invincible fleet vanish. "Sir," said Do-hyun quietly, "I'm picking up something strange. They're broadcasting our arrival on their entertainment networks. They're calling it the day the stars went dark." Tejo felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just unexpected resistance, this was a trap. Somehow, Earth had been waiting for them. Somehow this supposedly primitive species had prepared a welcome that was now dismantling his invasion force ship by ship. And as 3 more warships disappeared from his tactical display, Admiral Taeho realized that everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. Alarms blared throughout the Draconian mothership as officers rushed between stations. The command center had descended into barely controlled chaos. 5 more ships had vanished in the last hour, just disappeared without warning or explanation. The mighty invasion fleet that had conquered 17 worlds was being picked apart without the humans firing a single visible shot. "This is impossible!" shouted Commander Kang, slamming his scaled fist onto the tactical display. Unlike the usually composed Draconian officers, his fear was showing. "How can they do this? Where are our ships going?" Admiral Taeho watched the panic spreading through his crew. He had never seen anything like this in 300 years of military service. His perfectly planned invasion was falling apart, and he couldn't even identify what weapon the humans were using against them. "We need answers," Taeho finally declared. "Send strike teams to their research facilities. Capture their scientists. Someone down there knows what's happening to our fleet." Within hours, Draconian troops had descended to Earth's surface in stealth shuttles, targeting research facilities across the globe. They returned with several human scientists, including Dr. Kim, a quantum physicist from South Korea, who was dragged onto the command bridge in handcuffs. Dr. Kim looked around at the alien technology with wide eyes, but showed no fear, only curiosity. This surprised Taeho, who was used to seeing terror in the faces of species they conquered. "You will explain how you are making our ships disappear," demanded Taeho, towering over the human. Dr. Kim blinked, looking genuinely confused. "Disappear? What ships? We just detected your presence a few hours ago." Commander Kang moved forward, anger in his yellow eyes. "Do not play games with us, human. 15 of our warships have vanished since we entered your orbit. What technology are you using?" "I honestly don't know what you're talking about," Dr. Kim insisted. "I'm just a physicist working on theoretical quantum states. We don't have technology that could make starships disappear." Ji-won, who had been quietly analyzing data in the corner, suddenly looked up. "Sir, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from these coordinates." She projected a global map showing dozens of locations lit up across Earth's surface. These facilities weren't on any of our scans before. Taeho studied the map. The locations formed a perfect grid across the planet's surface, too perfect to be coincidental. "What are these places?" he asked Dr. Kim. The scientist looked at the map and his expression changed slightly, just enough for Taeho to notice. "Weather monitoring stations," Dr. Kim said too quickly. "Take a team to investigate the nearest one," Taeho ordered Ji-won. "I want to know what weather they're monitoring." Hours later, Ji-won returned with footage that silenced the entire command bridge. The weather station housed technology far beyond what the Draconians believed humans capable of building. At its center was a device generating a field that bent light and space itself. "It's a displacement field generator," Ji-won explained. "There are hundreds of them working together as a network around the planet. They're not destroying our ships, they're redirecting them somewhere else." "Another dimension?" Taeho asked, the concept almost beyond belief. Ji-won nodded. "Based on these readings, I believe so. Technology we thought was centuries beyond human capability." Taeho turned back to Dr. Kim, who now looked resigned rather than confused. "Explain," the scientist sighed. 12 years ago we detected signals from space, not yours. Another race. They were violent, conquering, like you. Instead of broadcasting our discovery, Earth's governments decided to prepare secretly. We've been building this defense network for over a decade, hiding it from our own people to prevent panic." "That's impossible," argued Commander Kang. "Your people fight among yourselves constantly. You could never coordinate a global defense project." Dr. Kim actually smiled at this. "That's what everyone thinks. Our political disagreements are real, but when faced with extinction, humans can set aside differences. The threat of alien invasion was the one thing all nations could agree on." The truth dawned on Tae-ho with terrible clarity. The Draconians had completely misread humans. What looked like division was actually diversity, a strength, not a weakness. What appeared primitive was deliberate camouflage. "Where are our ships now?" Tae-ho demanded. "In a pocket dimension," Dr. Kim explained. "Your crews are alive but trapped. They can be returned safely if you agree to leave our solar system." Half the invasion fleet was gone. Tae-ho's mind raced as he contemplated his next move. The Draconian Emperor was not forgiving of failure. How could he explain that a supposedly primitive species had outsmarted the greatest military force in the galaxy, sir? G1 said quietly. "I've analyzed their network. It has limits. It can only process one ship every 20 minutes. We still have enough firepower to overwhelm them if we attack simultaneously." Tae-ho considered this. It would be risky, but perhaps their only chance to salvage the mission. Yet something about the humans' calm demeanor troubled him. Dr. Kim seemed too confident, as if he knew something the Draconians didn't. "You're not telling us everything," Tae-ho said. Dr. Kim shrugged. "You kidnapped me from my lab. I'm under no obligation to help you invade my planet." Before Tae-ho could respond, a message alert sounded. The Emperor himself was calling for an update on the conquest of Earth. Tae-ho felt a chill run down his spine. How could he explain that half his fleet had vanished without firing a shot, that humans, supposedly centuries behind Draconian technology, had built a defense system beyond their understanding? As he moved to answer the call, Dr. Kim spoke. "But Admiral, there's something you should know about humans. We're very good at preparing for the worst. The displacement field isn't our only defense. It's just the first one you encountered." Tae-ho paused, suddenly aware that his carefully planned invasion had become something else entirely. A fight for survival against an enemy he had fatally underestimated. Captain Dae-sung stood before the massive view screen on the Draconian command ship, his scaled face twisted in confusion. What he was seeing made no sense. Humans across the planet were watching the invasion unfold on their entertainment networks, complete with expert commentary and animated graphics tracking the disappearance of Draconian ships. "They've turned our invasion into a television show?" he asked, unable to hide his disbelief. Intelligence Officer Sumin nodded, equally baffled. "They're calling it Alien Invasion Live, and it's breaking viewing records across their planet. Look at these numbers. 4 billion humans are watching right now." Admiral Tae-ho approached, his heavy footsteps echoing on the metal deck. The past 12 hours had aged him visibly. Half his invasion fleet was gone, trapped in some pocket dimension created by human technology that shouldn't exist. "Show me more," he ordered. The screen shifted to various human broadcasts. News anchors calmly discussed the invasion's progress. Military experts analyzed Draconian tactics with professional detachment. Comedy programs were already creating skits mocking the invaders' confusion. "This isn't how conquered species behave," muttered G1. "They should be panicking, hiding, praying to their gods, not making jokes." Sumin pulled up more data. "Sir, look at their social media networks. Our threats are being turned into what they call memes. Our warning message to their leaders has been remixed into popular music." On screen, teenagers danced to an auto-tuned version of Admiral Tae-ho's ultimatum. The words, "surrender or be destroyed," had somehow become a catchy chorus. "Enough!" roared Tae-ho. "Launch the psychological warfare program. Show them what happens to worlds that defy the Draconian Empire." Captain Dae-sung, the fleet's psychological warfare expert, activated the program. Massive holograms appeared in Earth's skies, showing planets being destroyed, species being enslaved, all accompanied by a carefully designed sound pattern proven to induce terror in most sentient beings. The result was not what they expected. "Sir," reported Sumin hours later, "humans are holding viewing parties for our terror projections. They're rating them against something called disaster movies. Many are complaining that our effects aren't realistic enough." Dae-sung couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Not realistic enough. We showed them actual footage of planets we destroyed." "They think it's fiction," Sumin explained. "Their entertainment regularly features apocalyptic scenarios. They've been imagining alien invasions in their media for over a century. Nothing we show them seems worse than what they've already envisioned for themselves. Teho paced the command deck, trying to understand these humans. Every species they had conquered followed a predictable pattern of fear, resistance, and eventual submission. But humans seemed to absorb the threat into their culture, transforming fear into entertainment, even humor. "There's something else," G1 said quietly, bringing up new sensor data. "We've detected energy signatures that weren't there before. Powerful ones coming from facilities that appeared to be civilian infrastructure." The screen showed seemingly ordinary human buildings, university campuses, corporate headquarters, even entertainment complexes, now revealing themselves as sophisticated technological installations. Energy shields were activating around major cities. Weapons platforms previously disguised as communication towers were powering up. "How did we miss this?" demanded Teho. "Our initial scans showed primitive weapons, basic defense systems." Sumin had been reviewing their intelligence files all night. The young officer looked exhausted, but oddly energized by the puzzle before her. "Sir, I believe we fundamentally misunderstood human society," she said. "What looked like division, their different nations, languages, religions, isn't weakness. It's their way of creating constant competition that drives innovation. What appeared as chaos is actually a strength." She pulled up more images: human history, art, science, warfare. "Look at their pattern," she continued. "Humans thrive on challenge. They fight among themselves constantly, but when faced with external threats, they unite with remarkable speed. Their apparent technological limitations? I believe they were deliberate. They've been hiding their true capabilities." The Admiral stared at the data, a cold realization washing over him. "They knew we were coming." Sumin nodded. "That scientist we captured mentioned they detected signals from another hostile race years ago. They've been preparing specifically for invasion, but kept their preparations secret, even from most of their own population." Daesung, still monitoring human broadcasts, suddenly called out, "Sir, their governments are making a coordinated announcement." On screens across the Draconian fleet, Earth's leaders appeared together, not fighting, not blaming each other, but standing united. Their message was simple: the time for hiding was over. Earth was revealing its true face. One by one, secret installations across the planet unveiled themselves. Research facilities transformed, revealing quantum energy systems. Ordinary-looking. Buildings opened to display advanced weapons platforms. University research projects activated planetary shield generators. "Impossible," whispered G1. "Our intelligence indicated they were at least a century away from this level of technology." "They wanted us to think that," replied Teho, finally understanding. "Their divisions, their primitive weapons, their political conflicts, it was all a show. A trap designed to lure overconfident invaders exactly like us." As if confirming his realization, a new transmission came through from Dr. Kim, the physicist they had captured and subsequently released as a show of mercy. "Admiral Teho," said the human, no longer appearing confused or intimidated. "Now that the charade is over, perhaps we should talk about your surrender terms." Behind the scientist stood rows of technology, unlike anything they had included in their intelligence reports. Humans hadn't just been hiding their advancement, they had been accelerating it, driven by the knowledge that someday something like the Draconian Empire would come calling. "Sir," said Sumin quietly, "I believe we've made a terrible mistake. These humans, and they're not what we thought they were. They're something much more dangerous, a species that uses their own chaos as a weapon, that thrives on being underestimated." Admiral Teho looked out at the planet below, suddenly seeing it with new eyes, not as an easy conquest, but as perhaps the most formidable opponent the Draconian Empire had ever faced. Commander Han crouched behind the twisted wreckage of what had once been a Draconian assault vehicle. Plasma fire scorched the air above his head. This was supposed to be an easy mission: secure a human population center, establish a foothold for the main invasion force. Instead, his elite troops were pinned down by civilians. "Status report," Han barked into his communication device. "Sir, we've lost contact with Teams 3 and 4. came the breathless reply from his second-in-command. Team 2 is surrounded in what the humans call a shopping mall. My team is holding position but taking heavy fire. Han peered around. The edge of his cover. Across the street, a group of ordinary-looking humans had turned a small cafe into a fortress. An old woman, an elderly human female who shouldn't have posed any threat whatsoever, was pointing what appeared to be a simple cooking device at his troops. Every time she activated it, his soldiers' weapons systems failed. How are they doing this? Han hissed. An explosion rocked the ground as another Draconian vehicle went up in flames down the street. A human child had approached it, holding what looked like a gaming device. The young human had simply touched it to the vehicle's hull, and moments later, the transport systems had turned against itself. Han's mission had gone wrong from the first moment they'd landed. His intelligence briefing had promised minimal resistance, humans with primitive firearms and simple explosives at worst. Instead, his forces were being decimated by everyday objects transformed into advanced weapons. "Commander," a voice crackled. Through his communicator, "This is Admiral Tejo. Report your situation." Han swallowed hard. "Sir, we are facing unexpected resistance. The humans are using technology hidden within ordinary objects. They appear to have prepared for our specific tactical approaches. Withdraw your forces to these coordinates," ordered Tejo. "We're changing our strategy." Han signaled his remaining troops to fall back. As they retreated, he watched in disbelief as humans emerged from buildings all along the street. Shop owners, office workers, parents with children, all carrying ordinary items that had somehow incapacitated the most elite fighting force in the galaxy. Back on the command ship, Admiral Tejo studied the reports from ground forces across the planet. Every landing team told the same story. Humans using seemingly ordinary objects as sophisticated weapons, kitchen appliances that generated EMP pulses, vehicles that could hack Draconian systems on contact, children's toys that disrupted communication networks. "How is this possible?" G1 asked, reviewing footage of a human farmer using a simple tool to disable a Draconian tank. "Our intelligence showed no evidence of this level of technology integration." "Because they hid it," Tejo replied grimly. "Everything about these humans is deception. They knew someone would come eventually, and they prepared in ways we couldn't detect." Sumin, who had been analyzing the patterns of human resistance, looked up from her station. "Sir, I believe I've identified their main defense control center. It's disguised as a research facility in a region called Switzerland." "CERN?" G1 asked, pulling up the information. "Our scans showed it as a simple particle physics laboratory." "A perfect cover," said Tejo. "If we can capture this facility, we might finally gain an advantage. Prepare a direct assault." Hours later, Commander Han led a specialized strike team into the sprawling CERN complex. Unlike their previous encounters, the facility appeared lightly defended. They moved through pristine white corridors, passing scientific equipment and surprised-looking researchers who offered little resistance. "This doesn't make sense," Han whispered to his team. "Why would they leave their control center so lightly guarded?" They reached the central chamber where a massive circular tunnel disappeared into the walls. Human scientists looked up from their workstations, showing more curiosity than fear at the armed Draconians. "This is it?" Han asked in disbelief. "This is just a particle accelerator." One of the scientists, an older man with glasses, stepped forward. "Yes, that's exactly what it is. What were you expecting?" Han grabbed the human by his lab coat. "Our intelligence says this facility controls Earth's defense grid. Where are the weapon systems?" The scientist blinked. "Defense grid? This is a physics laboratory. We're studying the fundamental nature of reality." Something felt wrong. Han ordered his troops to search the facility thoroughly. They found nothing but research equipment, confused scientists, and complex mathematics on whiteboards. "Sir," one of his soldiers called out, "you need to see this." The soldier had discovered a hidden door behind a seemingly ordinary wall. Han approached cautiously, weapon raised, and pushed it open. What lay beyond defied everything the Draconians thought they knew about human technology. A vast chamber stretched before them, filled with crystalline structures and pulsing energy fields. At its center stood a control system unlike anything Han had ever seen. "This isn't a particle accelerator," he breathed. "It's the planetary defense grid control center," finished the scientist who had followed them in. "Yes, the accelerator is real, but it's also a cover for our true work here." Before Han could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. On screens around the chamber, a countdown had begun. "What is this?" Han demanded. The scientist smiled. "You found our control center. Congratulations. Unfortunately for you, that triggered our final defense protocol." In orbit above Earth, Admiral Tejo watched in horror as a wave of energy surged from the planet's surface. The bluish field expanded rapidly, engulfing satellite after satellite until it completely surrounded the planet. "What's happening?" he demanded. "It's some kind of planetary shield," Ji-won replied, frantically working her console. "It's—" Her words were cut short as every system on the flagship suddenly went dark. Emergency lights flickered on, casting the command bridge in an eerie red glow. "We've lost power," reported an officer. All ships reporting the same. Life support and artificial gravity still functioning on emergency power, but weapons, engines, and communications are dead. Tejo stood in stunned silence. The remaining Draconian fleet, 15 warships that had survived the displacement field, now hung helpless in Earth's orbit. Through the viewports, he could see the planet below, surrounded by its shimmering shield. "Admiral," said a communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. Audio only." Tejo nodded, and a calm human voice filled the bridge. "Admiral Tejo, this is the United Earth Defense Council. Your invasion has failed. Your ground forces have been captured or neutralized. Your fleet is disabled. We are transmitting coordinates for your personal shuttle. The planetary shield will open briefly at that location to allow your passage. Earth's leaders request your presence for a discussion of terms." The message ended, leaving a heavy silence on the bridge. "It's a trap," said Ji-won. "They want to capture you." Tejo stared at the beautiful blue planet that had so thoroughly defeated the mighty Draconian Empire. A world they had dismissed as primitive, divided, and weak had outmaneuvered them at every turn. "No," he said finally. "They could destroy us now if they wanted to. They're showing restraint." He turned to his officers. "Prepare my shuttle." As Admiral Tejo left the bridge, he couldn't help but wonder what other surprises these remarkable humans had in store. And more importantly, what they would demand from the Empire that had so foolishly tried to conquer them. Admiral Tejo's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, passing through a brief opening in the planetary shield. That closed immediately behind him. His pride wounded but his curiosity intense, he watched the landscape unfold below, cities still functioning normally, people going about their daily lives as if an alien invasion hadn't just been thwarted. There were no signs of panic, no military, mobilizations visible from the air. It was as if the humans had expected this outcome all along. The shuttle landed on a platform atop a sleek building in a city his database identified as Geneva. An honor guard waited to escort him, not soldiers with weapons but ordinary-looking humans in simple uniforms. This final insult wasn't lost on Tejo. They didn't even consider him a threat worth guarding against. "This way, Admiral," said a young woman showing no fear of his reptilian appearance or the fact that he towered over her. "They're waiting for you." Tejo followed silently, taking in every detail. The building's interior was a blend of natural materials and technology, so seamlessly integrated it was almost invisible. Humans of all types passed by, giving him curious glances but little more. No fear, no hostility, just interest. The woman led him to a circular chamber where 7 humans sat around a table. They represented different regions of Earth, different colors, ages, genders, yet they presented a unified front. At the head of the table sat an older man who introduced himself as Chief Negotiator Park. "Welcome to Earth, Admiral," Park said, gesturing to an empty chair. "Please join us." Tejo remained standing, his pride not allowing him to sit as an equal with the representatives of a conquered planet, even if the conquest had failed spectacularly. "I demand answers," he said, his voice rumbling through the chamber. How could a species still burning fossil fuels possess technology capable of defeating the Draconian Empire? How could a planet divided into hundreds of squabbling nations mount a unified defense? "What are you?" Park smiled, a genuine expression that caught Tejo off guard. There was no malice in it, only a sort of patient understanding. Please, Admiral, sit. This may take some time to explain. Reluctantly, Taeho lowered himself into the chair, which adjusted automatically to his larger frame. First, Park began, I must correct a misunderstanding. We do still use fossil fuels, but only as a small part of our energy matrix. The visible pollution, the outdated power plants, these were part of the facade we maintain. Facade? Taeho asked. A woman across the table, Director Jun from the Asian Coalition, nodded. For nearly a century, humanity has been aware that we are not alone in the universe, and that not all who travel between stars come in peace. Park tapped the table, and a holographic display appeared in the center. It showed a ship, not Draconian, but clearly alien. In 1947, this vessel crashed in a region called New Mexico, he explained. Its occupants were dead, but its databanks were intact. Among the information we recovered was a detailed catalogue of spacefaring civilizations, including yours. Taeho stared at the image, then at the humans around the table. You've known about us for that long? Not just known about you, said another representative, a dark-skinned man from the African Union. We've been preparing for you specifically. The ship contained warnings about the Draconian Empire's expansion patterns. We knew someday you would come for Earth. Taeho's mind raced. This changed everything. But your technology, even with warnings, how could you advance so quickly? The Empire has been expanding for millennia. Most species take 10 times as long to develop the defenses you have. Park leaned forward, his eyes intense. That, Admiral, is where you fundamentally misunderstood humans. Our greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our chaos. Chaos? Taeho repeated. Your empire is built on order, hierarchy, uniformity, Director Jun explained. One central authority directing research, controlling development, dictating priorities. It's efficient in some ways, but it's also predictable, slow to innovate, resistant to radical new ideas. While humans, continued Park, thrive on competition, disagreement, and challenge, what you saw as our weakness, our divisions, our conflicts, is actually the engine of our progress. Thousands of different approaches to the same problem, all running simultaneously. Most fail, but the successes, he smiled again, the successes change everything. A younger representative added, when we learned about the threats waiting among the stars, we made a choice. Instead of revealing the truth and unifying under one government, which would have slowed our innovation, we maintained the appearance of division while secretly cooperating on defense. The fossil fuels, the border conflicts, the political posturing, all part of the show, said the African representative. A show designed to make any watching eyes underestimate us, to make would-be conquerors overconfident. Taeho felt a cold realization wash over him. A trap. You wanted us to invade. Park nodded solemnly. We needed to know if our defenses worked, and we needed to send a message to others who might be watching. But why maintain the deception to your own people? Taeho asked. Why not tell everyone the truth? An elderly woman who had been silent until now spoke up. Fear changes people, Admiral. Knowing that hostile aliens exist would have united humanity, yes, but in terror, not purpose. Instead, we let people live normal lives while those of us, with knowledge, prepared in the shadows. The displacement fields, the planetary shield, the integrated weaponry, all developed in secret, Park added. Tested in the guise of scientific experiments or commercial products, hidden in plain sight. Taeho struggled to process this information. His entire understanding of humans had been wrong. Not just wrong, deliberately manipulated. What now? He finally asked. My fleet is disabled, my forces captured. The Emperor expects a conquest, not a defeat. Park's expression became serious. That brings us to why you're here, Admiral. We're offering the Draconian Empire a choice. The holographic display changed to show the Draconian fleet, still powerless in orbit. Option 1. We restore power to your ships and allow you to return home. You will carry our message. Earth is protected and not to be approached again. The Emperor must mark our solar system as forbidden territory. And option 2, Taeho asked, already suspecting the answer. Those of your people who wish to stay may do so, Park said, surprising him. Not as conquerors or conquered, but as immigrants. To share your knowledge, learn from us, and perhaps build something better together. Teho stared at the human. You would welcome us, after we tried to conquer you. Forgiveness is another human trait you might find surprising, said the elderly woman with a gentle smile. We've learned through our own bloody history that endless cycles of vengeance benefit no one. For the first time in his long life, Admiral Teho felt something shift inside him. The humans could have destroyed his fleet entirely. Instead, they offered choices, even kindness. If I were to stay, he said slowly, testing the idea, what would become of me? Park's eyes showed understanding. You would be free to live among us, to learn our true nature rather than the facade, to see what humanity really is when we're not pretending to be less than we are. Teho looked around the table at these remarkable beings, a species that had outthought the mightiest empire in the galaxy, a people who had turned their apparent weakness into their greatest strength, who had not just prepared for invasion, but had shaped themselves into the perfect trap for overconfident conquerors. I believe, said Teho finally. I would like to learn more about humans. As the meeting concluded, Teho gazed out a window at the city below. He thought about the report that would reach the Emperor, about Earth being marked on stellar charts not as a conquest, but as a forbidden zone, the planet of humans, who appeared weak but weren't, who seemed divided but united instantly against threats, whose greatest advantage was being perpetually underestimated, a world that had, with cunning and foresight, transformed itself into the deadliest trap the Draconian Empire had ever encountered, and then offered friendship to those caught in it.